Hey everyone, it's Book Crazy Katie. Today's video is a review of The Lovely War by Julie Berry. I'm going to start off with, I really liked this book. I felt that it was super fast-paced, pretty much kept me into it the whole time. The book is narrated mostly by Aphrodite, but it's also narrated by a few other gods. And I'm not going to say which gods, but each god plays a vital role in this. The book starts off with Aphrodite and Ares being caught in a net by Hephaestus, who Hephaestus is Aphrodite's husband. He's like the god of fire, and he also makes like traps and stuff all the time. He's trapped Aphrodite and Ares in a net because he caught them romantically involved with each other and had plenty of evidence of Aphrodite cheating on him. This happens in a hotel room during World War II. A couple of other gods end up coming into the role of narrating throughout the stories that Aphrodite calls on. Hephaestus threatens to bring Aphrodite and Ares to a trial with Zeus and all of their godly peers. However, Aphrodite asks him not to do that and convinces him to testify her case. And she does that, and she starts off with saying that I might find a mortal to love me, she continues, but that's worship, not love. I'm perfect. Mortals aren't meant to love perfection. It disillusions and destroys them in the end. Aphrodite claimed that she couldn't be loved because she is the goddess of love, and so she was able to present her case to Hephaestus. She claimed that neither Hephaestus nor Ares actually loved her. She does give two great love stories that happened during World War I. So as I said, Aphrodite gives her reason that she couldn't be loved because she's the goddess of love, and everyone and everything that she encounters just ends up being infatuated with her. She envies people for being able to love, decided to recount the story of two couples that fell in love during World War I. These couples are James and Hazel. Both of them are British. They meet during a dance in Poplar, which is where Hazel is from, right before James sets off to boot camp during World War I. You get Aubrey and Colette, and Aubrey was an African American in the 15th Regiment, American Army. He was part of the African American jazz band that was in the war. And then you have Colette, who was born in Belgium, and the Germans had killed her family and her first love, Stefan. So after James went off to war, Hazel decided to volunteer for the YMCA and went to keep the soldiers company, and she ends up keeping American soldiers company. After Colette's family was killed, she lied about her age and went and did the same thing of joining the YMCA, and I think the book made it seem like she'd been doing it for a while. She ends up at the same camp that Hazel ended up at, and they become friends. This camp also happens to be the same camp that Aubrey Edwards ends up being at because she's an American soldier. Aubrey one day ends up meeting Hazel and getting introduced to Colette because Aubrey heard her playing piano and ended up in the hall that they were in, and she invites him to come play piano when he wants because the African American hut didn't have a piano to play, or a broken piano to play or something like that, so she offers to let him do it and breaks some rules in the process. You get this love story between these two couples. Throughout the whole thing, you get to see how like war and some other obstacles impacted everything along the way. I feel like Julie Berry tackled race as part of it. Having an African American soldier during World War I, you're going to talk a little bit about it. I guess Hazel's dad played some music for some people, and he did it with like at a playhouse or something. Not entirely sure, but like where he worked, they paint blackface on, and he wasn't comfortable with that, but he never stood up for it, and he said something to Hazel about maybe standing up for it at some point. Hazel do a little bit of a stand, like at the beginning. The YMCA directors says that they can't go anywhere near the black hut, and Hazel pretty much was like, why can't we all play for them, but still wasn't allowed to. And then you just see her helping Aubrey out and letting him play music. As Aubrey's sneaking in to play music and starts falling for Colette, he encounters some white soldiers at some point, and they warn him not to fraternize with the white girls because they're worried that he'll come back to America and start trying to steal the white women from them. There's evidence in the book given that there had been African American people that had disappeared, and their causes of their disappearance or death had been covered up. Something tragic happens in the book where someone ends up dying. I'm going to try to find the note, but I'm not going to give away all the details about it. It's a little bit of a spoiler. I want to give you a quote regarding the incident that Captain James Europe ends up giving Aubrey, and because Aubrey feels like he's responsible for what happened. Europe ends up telling Aubrey, but let's get this straight, you're not the one who should have gotten killed. Joey shouldn't have gotten killed. Nobody should have been killed. A black man's got as much right to live and see a girl and go to the toilet for Christ's sake as anyone else. I like that it covered a little bit of, a race thing for something that's covering World War I. At times it did feel like it's a little bit of a retroactive, we're in the 21st century and can look at this and be like, hey, this is bad, but at the same time, not everyone here in World War I had the same beliefs that the overall population practiced. One thing that I think helped tie it in is that some of the characters that are mentioned in the book, such as Captain James Europe, Commanding Officer Fish III, I can't think of his first name, and some of the jazz players for the African regiment were real people during that time, and the fate of Captain James Europe ended up actually happened to him post World War I. And I was about to look it up myself because they had mentioned I can't think of what the blues thing was called, but I've seen mention of it and seen it brought into other shows and movies. Timeless did an episode where they dealt with same exact recording. I was curious already, but she ended up bringing it up in the author's note at the end of the book, so I was fascinated, and I figured with it being a historical fiction novel that chances are that it was real. At the end of the book, I ended up sobbing. It wasn't the complete end, because even though there's some sad stuff that happens in this book, I'd say overall it has a pretty uplifting or happy ending. However, it's not perfect happy. Everything's completely normal. There was adversity at the end. There's a certain scene that happens at the end of the book that just had me sobbing. Even though things ended up turning out alright for both couples, it was still left you feeling deeply sad for the event that happened. The only other thing I think I want to talk about is a little bit with the writing style and readability. I feel like this book read super easy, and I feel like certain quotes just really hit me, struck really well with me, and I thought they were sweet. For instance, there's a section where Aubrey tells Colette that he could help her love Stefan for her and honor his memory, and I just thought that was a really nice touch. I feel like she did a really good job building these characters and giving them depth and stuff. I just felt like that was a really compassionate and sweet thing that anybody that loves somebody else could do, is offering to love previous lover that had died. Lovely War is a YA historical fiction. However, looking at some of the other books that Julie Berry has written middle grade for younger kids, so I feel like this is a good transition book from middle grade to YA. I feel like it deals with some more serious topics and more serious things happen in this book, so I wouldn't say that this book is middle grade, but it can read a little bit like middle grade. Like some of the sentences seem a little bit simpler and easier to use. Like it doesn't feel like anything super complex, and I feel like the narration is really clever. I think it read really well and was well written despite all that. I do think that it's a good transition book, but I enjoyed it as a 32-year-old. I think it can cross age gaps. I highly recommend this book for you guys if you're willing to check it out. I heard about it from Haley in Bookland. I really appreciate her recommendation because I've never read it, and I also highly recommend it. That's it for today. Have a good day. Bye.